My major project is a Unity game by the name of Roswell Ride. It is a fast-paced racing game intertwined with short cutscenes to tell the story of the world. I first started my game with the soundtracks. My soundtrack was created in FL Studio, a digital audio workstation. This allows me to interact with a list of features for music creation, such as the piano roll where I make melodies, the dashboard where I put these patterns together, and my mixer where I mix volume and effects to fine-tune whatever sound I'm using. Describing the entire creation process would take forever, so I'm only going to describe the chorus. The chorus is situated on the key of B minor harmonic, which means the 7th is raised, and it's also heavily influenced by Dance with Steel Ball Run. First, I need to make my bass line, which I sampled with a 5-string bass and then moved onto my piano roll. Second, chords, which I staccated and moved around and arpeggiated, which just means I screwed around with the timing really. Then I applied these notes to 5 different instruments. After my chords, I made the melody, which it plays on octaves, and again I used different instruments such as staccated trumpets. Then I made the drums using a virtual plugin after sampling. Afterwards, I put them all together, and then tweaked them with effects such as reverb and delay, and mastered them with an equalizer, which allows me to manipulate frequencies to create a more professional sound. Now here's the instrumental. And for the lyrics, I used Synthesizer V Studio and used a vocalizer, which long story short is basically able to create sound using something called a voice bank, which I could then turn into lyrics. For my guitar sections, I prototyped them using my guitar. For example, for the bridge after the second chorus, the guitar part was inspired by the stage from Avenged Sevenfold, and involved me testing different arpeggiated chords until I was happy with what I got. Before actually modelling, I made multiple sketches of the characters and scenes to see what worked. For example, this scene was originally going to be fully animated, but I decided it should be a still shot instead. Furthermore, before actually putting my characters onto the models with their bikes, I tested the sizes until the bikes were actually appropriate for a human rider. For example, the handles were just a bit too far apart.
Anyways.
Blender was my choice for the 3D modeling aspect of this project because it is free and accessible. Also, I have a lot of previous experience in Blender and I just figured it would be a lot better to use than Maya. First, I had to polymodel basic shapes. For example, for this rock, I would start by manipulating or adding edges, then creating the basic shape. Afterwards, I would apply a modifier or two, such as a boolean, which has multiple functions, but I only use a difference option to make things such as the shotgunner's clothing. However, to make my models look actually good, I increase the amount of faces with the subdivision modifier. Increasing the amount of faces in this matter is a trade, that being that models are larger and more complex, however it increases the smoothness of a piece. Then I would texture it with nodes such as a noise texture. Usually, when rigging in Blender, an artist would have to do an annoying process called weight painting. However, my models are made in a time-saving manner, being made up of several different objects that aren't meant to contour on their own. Think of the limbs like Lego bricks. This meant I only had to make appropriate bones and then apply them to their appropriate objects. When animating scenes, I'll refer back to my sketches and create a keyframe on my character to realize the storyboard and bring my choreography to life. But first, what's keyframing? Keyframing is creating 2 or more frames and then having the software automatically tween them together, creating in-between frames, you could say. Blender also gave me the choice to pick the tween mode, increasing velocity or having a linear motion. That's how I made most of my scenes come together. However, I want to mention some things I did in Premiere Pro. Personally, I'm a major fan of any stylized still shot, or having something as simple as an impact frame. For my game, whenever I wanted a shot with one of these frames, I would move the renders into Premiere Pro on different layers using green screening and then move them independently with shaking effects, also creating the text. Furthermore, in Premiere Pro, I also added my finished renders, added text effects such as the typewriter, and then other effects for the camera shake. Anyways, I've been ignoring this bit for a while now. Unity is the game development engine I chose for a variety of reasons, such as being able to play MP4s, which Godot can't do. For general game design, my ideas took a few turns. First, I entirely had a different idea, a beat 'em up similar to Devil May Cry, then maybe a shooter like Ultra Kill, but I eventually settled on a racing game due to it being actually possible in my time constraints. Furthermore, when it comes to prototypes and testing, I had a few ideas on what my camera's perspective should be. Top down, over the shoulder, I didn't really know. So I killed 2 birds with one stone by making a script that let my camera move to the position I could set variables in my editor for easy control, allowing me to prototype positions in real time. Furthermore, I had to hook up my animations, and this is where I solved another issue I hadn't mentioned yet. The wheel spinning was horrible, it just looked horrible in Blender, it just didn't work at all. So I had the wheel spin with code in Unity instead. Also, for another problem in game creation, I tried to use Godot. This went horribly wrong. Godot was unable to play MP4s and only uses lossy compression video types. This made my menus look awful, like genuinely awful, there was artifacts, and plus I had other issues importing, so I made the switch to Unity. Ice Train and Carpal Tunnel can heavily affect people working in multimedia, as they have painful effects and people working in multimedia have high risk due to the working conditions. To avoid these issues, I often took breaks. Breaks that took 2 weeks, but still breaks. And I also sat with proper posture to avoid back pain. I'm happy with the effectiveness of my methods, as they've created components that I'm proud to present. My Blender work has been effective, and so has my FL Studio work and my Unity work. This has led me on the road to achieve my success criteria of high quality, and furthermore, the project has remained within cost constraints.